The year 2020 was difficult for every business, but particularly tough for SMEs. Lockdowns, crashing demand, paucity of fund, and it was extremely difficult for businesses to function. However, beyond the gloom, the pandemic had some vital lessons for every sector and business. Some learned to pivot, while others learned to be frugal. To talk more about the experiences and the lessons learned in the last 10 months, we have three very distinguished names from the sector. It is my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Ashish Vaid, immediate past president, IMC Chamber, Mr. Animesh Saxena, president, FISME, and Mr. Mahavir Pratap Sharma, immediate past president, Papa's Export Promotion Council, CPC, and the chairman of Thai Global Board of. Great. So let me start with you, Mr. Vaid, first. What was your experience like in the last 10 months? What has been the impact of the pandemic on your business?
It all started around 25th March, as we know, the lockdown. And the first 6 months was absolutely like a complete shutdown of everything. I am in the real estate business. We have projects in the western suburbs, in Bhayandar, Dahisar, Thane, in those areas. And all our sites came to a halt completely. In fact, as you know, soon after, within a month, all the migrant laborers whom we normally employ on our sites, they all left the sites and they all left for their hometowns. So it was a real bad scene, actually, the 6 months. As we know, in Mumbai, we are residents in Mumbai, so the train stopped, there was no transport, so, and no materials coming, no labor. So obviously, everything came to a grinding halt. Also, our sales, obviously, because the offices were closed, even our sales offices closed, sites were closed, so no sales also. So it was really, really trying times from March through September until, of course, then the lockdown, the opening up one, opening up two, opening up three started. So being from the real estate sector, I can really tell you the first 6 months were really, really bad, really, really bad times. And as you know, real estate caters to 250 ancillary industries. So all those have taken a big hit in those first 6 months, for sure.
Right. Mr. Saxena, if I can come to you, you deal with a lot of SMEs. A lot of SMEs are a part
Yeah.
of FISME. What was the general feedback that you were getting from them in the last 10 months?
It was disastrous for SMEs. This sector was already stressed even before the pandemic with the demonetization and the GST. So the SMEs were badly impacted by these two reforms that the government introduced. Unfortunately, when we were trying to recover and this pandemic came, SME, as you know, they work on a very, very, limited funds and very, very thin margin of the business and no holding capacity. So what happened when the pandemic happened, when this lockdown started, immediately all your payments got blocked, supply chain disrupted, and no demand. And unfortunately, most of the SMEs, when the people employ 10 people to 100 people, they had no means to support the manpower, rentals, statutory dues, fixed costs, electricity, all these things. So it was really tough for them that how to manage their businesses. So overall, this at least till September, the things were very, very bad for us, and people and most of the laborers have gone back to their villages. So in fact, it was starting from the scratch again. Something like when we started, it was starting from scratch again, because a lot of landlords where the units were housed, rentals, they had locked the premises because the rentals were not paid. So to negotiate with them and deal with and trying to get the money back. With this Atmanirbhar, when the government announced this 3 lakh crore package, unfortunately, majority of the SMEs, they don't have access to the institutional finance. So for them, this scheme also was not helpful. So these were the challenges which we faced.
Right. Mahavir, if I can come to you, you are someone in the export sector as well. So how were the last 10 months for you?
So it was a double whammy, while all the challenges that Animesh and Mr. Vaid have shared, we were privileged to have all of them. Again, in the consuming world, the US, Europe also struggled much harder. And even if you had products or something ready to be exported, The importing country was not open. They were not ready to import. So there was perishable goods. There were goods that were seasonal because of fashion, because of weather. There were goods because colors and designs changed. So very challenging. So despite all the operating costs that was shared recently, we also had to deal with losses on account of goods and services that were stuck because the consuming markets were not open. China opened before us. They had a lead advantage. We had shortage of containers, and shipping lines had increased their prices. So even after September, this ordeal continues to challenge us because we are now struggling to not only retrieve our market, try and sell the old stock at losses, try and make new products and services in quick time because China has a lead, but also compete with increased cost on account of logistics. And of course, interest costs of all the capital investments and the bank loans that were staggered to the last 9 months or 10 months. So challenging year and tough going, and especially the luxury goods, the high end suffered more. The low end revived earlier. So it's mixed for products depending on what you are at, but more and more struggle continues to happen while we struggle to strive to go in the upward direction.
Right. Mr. Ved, if we can come to you, what are some of the key learnings that you picked up during the last 10 months, and will they be applicable for small businesses or any kind of business that is?
So it's a very, very important question, and I think it deserves a very, very long answer because I don't know how much time you'll give me for it. But there have been lots and lots of learnings for us, especially in our real estate industry in these times. So first of all, I think the major learning for us in the real estate has been to have leaner organizations. That means like if we have a huge staff, then how we should downsize our staff and automate more and more things. And of course, on the financial side, to be debt free as much as possible and not to leverage. In fact, in real estate, as you know, most developers leverage a lot. So we get financing from banks and from NBFCs. So a lot of them borrow heavily, and they keep building up huge pile of stocks rather than sell and cry. They continue to hold the stock. And so this has been a huge learning that, at every stage, we must be asset light and keep selling and keep on moving on. So that's been a very, very great learning. Besides that, of course, there are many other things that how we are on the personal front, how we lead our lives, like daily we rush 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day, 18 hours a day, and how we should calm down, we should slow down, how the weekends, how we treat them, how we treat our bodies physically, mentally. I mean, all that has been great, great learnings, how we must exercise more, eat right, relations with family, friends. I mean, lots and lots of things, how we should be, even hygiene levels, cleanliness, safety measures like washing hands, masks, they say social distancing. We never paid attention to all this. Street food eating. I'm a real street food junkie. So how we must be careful about all this. I mean, not to do it, but how to be careful what you do, So I think there have been several learnings, and even from a government viewpoint and other things, like there's educational and healthcare. These two factors have been brought out in great, it's like a spotlight on these two things, like how our healthcare has failed miserably. I mean, how one pandemic, we found that all our hospitals were overflowing with people, then how much healthcare we need in a city like Mumbai. I mean, I live in South Mumbai. I know from my friends who are doctors in the best of hospitals that they were just overflowing with, they didn't have beds. I mean, everyone was begging for beds. It had come to that kind of situation when they fell ill. And how the municipality did try and rise to the occasion by building these COVID centers. Thank God that in Mumbai it did not erupt to such a great extent and they could control it, but they had prepared some centers at the race course and other areas and the Maidans also. So, I mean, that gave a lot of food for thought that how the municipality or the government should encourage healthcare and even educational facilities. We were not, I mean, frankly, so much online and all. And now this has proved that how, schools and how kids have been away from schools and colleges, and a lot of online education has happened. So I think in the end, we have to learn lessons from this And it should not be a case of when this pandemic is cured or the vaccine comes and we go back to our old ways. So I think it's a lot of learning and a lot of food for thought and for reflection and come back to stuff, you know.
Mavi, if I can come to you, what were the learnings for you in the last 10 months?
Oh, learnings. We're still learning, but I think, of course, the fact that you have to be in a product that sells at all. You have to be more in a product that is more consumer oriented than an optional product. You need to have a varied product line where essentials and important things are part of your product or services line. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Just having an optional product or service lines can make you vulnerable. Secondly, as technology plays an important role. Your websites, e-commerce, B2B2C, kind of important elements are very, very important. How great product delivery through e-catalogs is very, very important, and physical exhibitions, when they're not possible, will be difficult. Also, I think the outreach in terms of planning ahead, especially because of logistics, especially because of areas that are difficult to reach out to, countries that are difficult to reach out to. Those are the learnings. Lastly, now physical distance does not really matter. So if you wanted to go to South America because you did not go there, because it was too far and you couldn't go there physically quite often, now you realize that it's not just Europe and America, and you can reach out to far-flung corners. You can reach out to Chile and Brazil and whatever countries that your products might be workable, and it's all easy. People don't have to actually travel. So I think a lot of learning. I think lowering of cost, operational cost and product cost is also very, very critical, because there's cutthroat competition. Distance and traveling is no longer required. Exhibiting and spending lakhs and lakhs of rupees on marketing and advertisement are not critical. You now have to be on social media. You have to do direct to consumer marketing and still safeguard your importer or wholesaler. So multiple dimensions were added, because now you are trying to reach out to a medium which is open to all, to your wholesale importers, to your retailers, to consumers. So you really have to be very careful with pricing, positioning, product and country match, product distributor match. All those things had to be taken into account, rather than just physical involvement or physical travel. So in all long and short of it, I think technology has started to play an important role. Reaching out is easier, and lowering of costs and quality improvement are both a priority.
Right. Saxena, if I can come to you, what were the learnings that SMEs picked up during these last 10 months?
You see, for us, since our membership base is right from micro, tiny to the medium enterprises, so learning for each sector, each segment was different. For micro, different, small and medium. But on the whole, what we have done, and this learning which we are trying to educate our members also, of course, this online selling, it has been a new avenue. And majority of our members who were into B2C segment, we had tied up with Amazon. We are holding workshops in different part of the country now, and take them on board, how they can get a wider market for their products. So Amazon has taken up as a social project also with us and with FISME, and we are doing that. Second thing, what we did, we made a study of 15, we chosen 15 cluster out of the pan India, where we have noticed that the import has taken over those products. And where the import was more than the 15 these clusters were selected, where the import was more than $1 billion right now. So we had tied up with SIDBI. SIDBI is funding us for that. We have chosen those clusters. We are working on them, why they lost out to the import, their businesses, and what technology inputs, what upskilling and new skills required, so that we can regain that market. And the government of Ministry of Commerce and Industry is very, very keen on us to do this study. So our study is in the midway. So we'll be coming back with that if these interventions can be supported by the government, so we can create these small and micro units again back on doing those products and with that same commodity price. The third thing was definitely the digital, because most of our people, especially below small and micro, they were not very literate people. So what we are doing now, we are starting this digital literacy for them, using technology as a platform for transacting their payments, buying the raw material, looking for the best raw material available at the cheapest prices. So use technology to enhance the competitiveness of your business and profitability. So these are the three areas which we are aggressively working with our members.
Mr. Vaid, if I can come to you, you mentioned earlier on that access to finance becomes difficult in periods like these. So, what were your some of the key pickings when you figured out that funding is drying up? What do you think should be the funding avenues for small businesses from now on?
Yeah, so I must say that the government was, though we always believe they're slow, but for the first time, I think the government was listening to us. And luckily, they came out with the morat period, for 6-8 months on interest payments. And yeah, so as I was telling you that we must try to make our organizations leaner. That means we must try and borrow less, and especially in the real estate sector. And then what we could, so if that happens, then obviously you need to borrow less. But where you're saying is that where can we borrow from? Well, borrowings are only from banks or NBFCs really. So where else will you borrow from? And that's where the challenge is, that we must rely less on borrowings, I think, overall. Or you get FDI money. Today, luckily in real estate, we get a lot of foreign direct investors also. So we have to look to such avenues where we are willing to give up a little equity in our companies, if at all, or do like a mezz product where we put part equity, part debt. So such stuff like that. Even for MSMEs, I mean, today, luckily, as you know, SBI and others, they have tied up with, now yesterday you must have read about Yes Bank has also tied up with these MSMEs, that where they are willing to give loans worth 5 crores on easy terms. So such things have to be encouraged to get people out of the woods. Because as we all know that this whole year, in financial year 2021, our GDP is about to sink by 10.6%. And we hope in 21-22, it will make up this entire 10.6%. So this is a tough time where and as Mr. Mavi said, this is the time to go digital and more. And, like today, luckily we are learning with you, and we are having this meeting today on Zoom. I mean, ideally, you would have called me to some meeting room and we would be discussing 4 of us. But here we are sitting in the comforts of our offices or homes and speaking to each other. So that's made life so much. So there are some positives which have come out of this, that we've learned that we don't need to sit in traffic and travel from North Bombay to South Bombay or something like that. And we can discuss with each other on the net. As far as financing, as I'm telling you, yes, I think the only trick is in the book is to keep your turnover rolling, keep selling, keep be asset light, be as much debt free as possible. As you see in the largest, we should learn from our leaders like Reliance. You know what they did in the pandemic. I mean, they were able to get in so much money from foreign investors into their company and become virtually debt free. So it's how you sort of program your business. But it has taught everyone, because we know now if 6-8 months or 9 months or 12 months you have no business and you have to just keep paying interest. The morat is not for non-payment of interest; it's just delayed payment of interest. So eventually we all have to pay the interest. So otherwise you're just paying interest and salaries. Many people, staff had to take a hit, when we say that they're not paying salaries, many organizations. But where could they from? Because they had no profits themselves. It's not that anyone was trying to be mean or hurt the employees. I think that was the least thing which anybody wanted to say. But that's the whole point, that we have to be so forward thinking that we can at least run our organization for at least a year or two if there are such troubled times, So it gives you food for thought. We think that there are good times forever, but you have to take these sort of things into account. And that's been a great learning, actually, that build up some surpluses, build up some reserves, build up some some money tucked away for a rainy day kind of story, and keep our organizations going. That's what I.
Avi, if I can come to you, especially in the export segment, the exporters have already been, talking about delayed GST returns and stuff like that. What do you do if you're an exporter and you are cash strapped? What are some of your key learnings that you picked up?
I think any businessman, and not just builders or exporters or manufacturers, a true businessman optimizes his or her money that they have, and they work on low debt, and they always have, it's difficult to be debt free because you want to grow, you want to invest, you want to have more stock, you want to sell more, irrespective of how you want to be. So I think everyone was caught off guard. I think cash flow suffered. The banks and the government did come to help with existing people who had limits. Moratoriums helped. Recent policy on banks being insured for up to 90% of the loan from 60%. I mean, all these things are great steps. But unfortunately, these are gobbled by the medium and large sectors. We are all privileged to have people, CFOs and chartered accountant companies to help us to create all these things. Down the line at micro and small level, sometimes things are tough. Banks become tough. Certain sectors for banks have, always been very difficult to deal with, especially in the jewelry sector. One bad case or one bad example, and the banks become wary of it. So there are challenges down the line in execution. I think funding and cash flow has been a challenge. But one good thing has come out of this thing, all of this, is that because people don't have money, really did not have the money, because people were not being refinanced by banks or otherwise, they have now started to stop to give terms. What China used to do earlier on, ask for money upfront, 50%, and India was not able to command because of competition between all of us and people who had large corpuses. Now people are saying that, we don't have money, we've had a tough year, you might have had a tough year, don't buy 100, buy 50, but I need my money because I can't pay. So that, I think, is a good shift, something that's good, come out good out of this, because people have realized sell or no sell. If the money does not come, if receivables are high, it is not going to work. Your low interest rates and interest subsidies can only help you so much in comparison to getting money from the markets. But I think you need to have money in the bank. And that element for the SME sector, for the export sector, for the importing country, and the governments that we export to, entire Europe, entire US, all have the businesses have got money in their banks because of all, Indian government did not do this, but everyone got anywhere from 10-15,000 to, depending on the number of employees they had, to pay salary. So they are much better off in terms of cash flow than we are. So I think that has added, our volumes might be low, but our receivables will be lower. And that is what is going to happen. And all the huge, fluctuations on foreign exchange that we had to envisage, and payments coming in 6 months to a year, will not probably happen. So things have been tight, things are tight, but now we have realized that we need to be paid as much as we need to pay. And it's no more than 15 to 30 days. And that's a good thing that has come out of the export sector.
So Satyana, if I can come to you, what were some of the avenues for the micro and small companies to get funding from? We heard a lot about fintechs. Did fintech help?
No. You see, the ground situation is for micro and small, there's hardly any support. It's still institutional finance support. If you look at the the funding nature of these enterprises, what they were, most of them were depending on the private lenders, where the interest rate was, you'll be surprised to know, from 24 to 36%, and deducted upfront when they give you the money. Second, they were getting some support from the NBFCs, because NBFCs had the last mile connectivity. Unfortunately, the PSUs and even the private sector banks, they are reluctant to fund the small and micro units. Their books are not that credit worthy where they can trust you, and they have a huge trust deficit. And the last mile connectivity is also missing. These units are scattered, in villages, small towns, everywhere. And the people who own these companies, they also cannot have the confidence of walking up to the branch manager and asking for some money and present their business that is a safe and profitable business. So all these factors, unfortunately, made them dependent on either the private lenders or the NBFCs. NBFCs, you know, for the last 2-3 days, because of their mismanagement, misfinancial management, has gone out of the scene. So they are left to feed themselves. And that is what we have been pressing in last 6 months with the government, various parliamentary committees, that you need to do something for that. Come up with a, you know, like the government has guaranteed the, you know, this without collateral 3 lakh crore. Why can't you guarantee a similar scheme for people who don't have, you know, already they are not the lenders or they don't have access to the institutional finance? If they don't have any CC limit, what about them? So come up with some scheme where you can ensure that, create and some you know, insurance company sort of thing, where you can you know, ensure that amount, and their requirement is not big. They're tiny. They need 1 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees at best. Second thing, made it mandatory that their payment should be paid in a fixed time frame. Like for government, central government and PSUs, the government has made 45 days norms, but it is on the ground, it is still not fully, you know, operational. People have issues, they complain, and then they go to champion portal, which they have been created. Why to, you know, all these things? Why to create a grievance for him? My job is to run my business, not running around chasing my payment and filing a grievance report. So, and it should be made for the private sector too, because not only the government, in the large corporates, they also don't pay to their MSME suppliers on time. And when you press them, they will come out with some excuse of some quality delivery date being missed or something like that. So everyone looks excuse to, you know, debit you some cost for this. So there has to be. Plus, there are facilitation councils in most of the states. What happens if you are not being paid? You go to the facilitation council. Arbitration. It goes into arbitrator. Arbitrator favors in you, and they go and challenge it in a higher court. So all these nonsense should be stopped. If for an MSME, if the arbitration has decided, it should be honored, and the other party should not be allowed to challenge it. So unless these out-of-box actions and solutions introduced by the government, MSME will remain like that. You know, everyone, you know, MSME has been the most favorite and darling of the everywhere, but we are the downtrodden community of the industrial community. People only, you know, they praise you for that, but on the ground, nothing is much is being done for them, especially on this. So these are some suggestions which we have been raising. If government can do that, and like Mahavir said, I'm also into export business myself. We are into apparel export, and whatever challenges he has mentioned or issues which we face, we face with that. But unfortunately, in our industry, the payment terms have gone up. Instead of he's saying he's coming back to the upfront almost, because most of the fashion chains abroad, they went chapter 11. And when they are reviving or whatever they were left, they have increased the payment terms. Our standard terms were 30 to 60 days. Today it is up to 180 days. And it's take it or leave it kind of situation. So I'm not lucky as a carpet exporter where we can demand that. And that's this thing.
Combining carpet and handicraft. But yeah, apparel has a challenge. I agree.
Yeah.
China is a bigger competition. I totally agree.
Yeah.
China, Bangladesh, in fact.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Saxena, if I can stay with you, funding is one part of it. The other part is, you know, about the team, you know, the kind of people that you have in your organization, the workers. What has the pandemic taught business owners when it comes to, you know, managing your workforce?
You see, it was very, very, you know, difficult when the whole thing, the workers, because most of us employ migratory workers. And our relationship is with them, unfortunately, is this: you work, we pay you, that's it. So now it was a great learning for our HR that how to, you know, deal with a more, you know, human approach with that. That let's work out with them that, you know, this pandemic came without a warning, without any precedence where how to handle the situation. So there were mistakes on employer side also. There, I mean, there was no effective communication. So we are working on a very, very effective communication with every workers now, that if something this sort happens again, lockdown, how to stay connected with each other and find out what are our basic needs. What happened, like in my own business, when this March 25th when announced, the March, 7th is the payday for most of the industrial units. So the payday was 12 days away from here. And then we had to seek for special permission from the administration to open our at least accounts and HR divisions so that we can process the payments. And then we started looking for the people, that how money can be sent to them if they are still confined to their homes in the cities, not gone back home or something like that. And then we made some special courier sort of thing, our own people, that, okay, get the money, cash transfer to them, get some ration, delivered to them. So these were the things which we learned. And now we are trying to make it an institutional kind of mechanism, that whenever this kind of situation comes again, then we are connected. We can take care of their basic needs. We can at least help them in paying their rentals, buy food for their families, and all these kind of things, so that the loyalty, improves and remains with that. Because once we lose somebody who has worked with us, certain skill he or she has developed for, and then we lose that. And not only the skill, the history of, because that worker knows this kind of problem was resolved. I mean, like in a technical issue in the factory or any production related issue, they have a history, they have an experience of handling that. A new person takes time. So it is in our interest that the people who are working should be retained and they come back to you. And then we tried reaching out to them, brought them back, all the efforts were made. So this is basically the thing which we did.
Right. Mr. Vaid, yours is a sector which is, highly dependent on the workforce.
Yeah.
What did you guys do?
Yeah, so in the first there was like a knee-jerk reaction, as you know, of course, till they went off, started going away, we had to look after their needs. So of course they were provided meals on the site and kept safely on the site, because the workers naturally have their camps. We have a labor camp on the site, so they were looked after for a month, or I think it was almost 45 to 60 days into the lockdown that we looked after them, and they were provided meals all 3 times. And then subsequently, when the lockdown sort of thing, when the movement was allowed, there was just like a mass exodus. Before we knew it, they were like running helter-skelter, which was sad, because some of them didn't know how they were going, what they were doing, but they just naturally, they were fed up living over here and they wanted to with their near and dear ones. So we found them all just leaving the town and the sites, which for us was okay, but I felt bad that, I hope they know where they're going and how they're going. But as Stanimesh was saying, that this is a lesson to learn, that, how to look after the staff, like we should know where they come from. Many times, I'm sorry, we as employers don't even know where these migrant workers come from. So it's a lesson to learn that, as we said, this pandemic has taught us many things. And this is one more thing, that how the labor staff should be looked after for the long run. Because you pay them, that like it's just like it's been, sorry to say, we are all like, it's been like mechanical, they as if they're working like robots for you. I mean, you just pay them the month end and they produce their output, but there had been no human touch. I'm sorry, we all lost that human touch. So now I think this is lessons that good records should be kept, which region they are from. If there is such a situation, can some arrangement be made by buses or something to send them in a hurry? But as you know, this time, I mean, we were all taken off guard. As you know, people left their trucks, the transporters, truckers left their trucks on the highways and ran. Yeah. What do you do in such a situation? This is totally, let's just pray that we get back to normalization soon. And luckily, India's handled it well. And let's hope we can get out of this, unlike the other countries which are going in for second waves and third waves and God knows what not, especially in Europe. And I know the exporters are suffering. And while we are talking about all this, we're only talking of exporters and real estate and little MSMEs, but I think the hardest hits have been all these airlines and hospitality sector, the poor fellows. I mean, but sometimes you see that now, like if you try to book a room in Goa in December, Jan, there are no rooms available. You come back with a bang, maybe. So it's a mixed bag, really, and we have to be prepared for the best, but prepare for the worst and hope for the best kind of situation. That's.
Mavi, what were your HR issues like, and how did you deal with them, and what are you going to do from now on?
Obviously, I totally agree with both my fellow panelists. I mean, absolutely, what happened and what we should have done or what we're not. We were going through contractors and subcontractors, and we left to them to get 50 people or 100 people when we needed them, and so on and so forth. So that thing I think has changed, and I think we're going down to the bottom of the pyramid and trying to reach out to each and every one. I think retention and retaining good quality, talented, skilled workers, no matter what sector you're in, is very critical for any organization. I think that was the toughest part. We lost quite a few people. We still have not had them come back. So two things that we have done, taking forward from where both of them left, is that we have started to upskill and skill local people also. We have also started to make them multi-talented, so if, for just to take an apparel example or a carpet, if they were cutting or shearing, we're now making them do other stuff also, stitching, and we want them to be multi-talented, because we do understand challenges of family and suddenly agriculture and certainty and quality of life, or fear of getting the disease when they come back to the city, are challenges. So we're trying to do that. Thirdly, I think when it comes to our rural employment in the handicraft and the carpet sector, I think that we were at a little advantage, because we were sending stuff to villages, raw material to the villages, and they were sitting in their homes and making. So that portion has quickly revived. Actually, we have surplus carpet weavers across villages, because they've all come back from various cities and they're back in the villages. So there has been a little bit of advantage. On the technology bit of it, on designers, on the higher level, I think we are cutting down of salaries, and we had to do that. We had no cash flow. I mean, the first month, everyone paid in April, everyone paid in May. And then suddenly we could not pay in June and July. And what we did was we had 2 or 3 options, either to lay people off and continue to pay full time while they work from home on designing or other technical things that they could from their home. Or we said, can you all collectively take a cut? And I think we took a call, and everyone agreed to take a percentage off and defer their salaries. And that is where we were able to retain some people on the technology front of it, especially designing, dyeing, all engineering or technically related chemical engineer, all that was helpful in that way. So that's where we also added, and I wouldn't say that we did not let people go. People left because of migration, but we did also kind of divide the salary cut across the board and try to retain the top talent, from accounting to HR. There were challenges, and we let the HR lead decide what they should be doing, and they had to decide for themselves before they decided for other departments. So I think it worked out well. I think as everyone wants it to go back to normal, I mean, our industry is back to normal, where the product line has changed, the ethos and processes have changed, but still in terms of working full-fledgedly, we're back to normal. But I think this is a great learning for us to be connected to our employees, to be more humane than anything else.
Right. Ramesh, in management, there is a jargon called business continuity planning. Do you think, small businesses understand that, and do you think they need to actually work on something like that? I mean, not the name itself, but, get some processes and procedures in place.
Yeah, that's extremely important. That's what we have been doing, a lot of education over seminars and these webinars which we are organizing, and we are now working on this. That it is extremely critical, because if we have to move to the next stage, we cannot run our businesses the way we were running. I mean, not just because of the pandemic. I mean, this was not financially viable also in a longer run. So we are insisting now that we have to follow due process, and how to improve that and include technology in that, to working on that. So this is an initiative by FISME, which we have taken up with all the. We have around 740 members association, a small member, SME association, and we are teaching them through. We are calling experts and how to do that, and this is the very important task for us. because we have realized this, that because when we were interacting with some of the SME associations of abroad, like Korea and Taiwan, and these people, Taiwan have no big, large, conglomerate like Korea has Samsung, LG, or India has, all these big names. You must not have, Taiwan has hardly 2 or 3 companies. Rest is all Taiwan economy is SME. And they have a beautiful, and very, very advanced technology, skilled workforce. So we are learning from them how they did this process over last 20, 30 years. The same model we want to apply in different clusters, that the excellent process control, technology, cutting edge technology in that. And we upgrade the skills of the people who are owning the enterprises as well as people who are working. Because a lot of in micro, you see the owner himself is a worker. So that we are working on that. We have signed MOU with these 2 country associations, SME associations, to exchange of knowledge for that.
Right. So where the role of technology, like Ms. Anmesh, talked about and gave the example of Taiwan, you think that is possible in a sector like yours, and can that be replicated across sectors?
Yeah, of course. So as you rightly said, this technology is the buzzword now today, so if we can really across sectors, I mean, even in our real estate, in fact, I think we don't use technology as much as we should be using. So yes, it is definitely, and I was just telling you small things like holding meetings across the places, and even the new innovations which keep coming out. If we get into all that, standardizing products, like there's, unfortunately, we tend to somehow get carried away in making new designs for in real estate, for example. For each building, we'll make a new design. If we standardize stuff, the cost can be much lower, the product can be better and better. So we can definitely digitalize, we can sort of regularize things which can make things simpler. The whole processes can be made much simpler. Even production of materials, for instance, like we get materials from all across the country. Now, if we can sort of see that products produced nearer us can reach us sooner, that's much better. What I'm really excited about is like 2 things which Mr. Animesh said about MSMEs. The only thing which I found good for MSMEs was they changed the definition of MSMEs. But I know on the ground reality, nothing is happening. But let's hope such things help. And what excites me the most was what they said in the budget speech last year, was spending about 100 lakh crores in 5 years on infrastructure. And I think infrastructure is the buzzword for today. And we've all been reading in the last 1 year, even in this lockdown, the great highway work, the railway tracks, the bullet train, this, that. And in a city like Mumbai has 5 fast track infra projects going on: the new airport, the Trans Harbour Link, the metro, the coastal road, and they're trying to even do the sea routes. So if all this really happens, I mean, we're in for exciting times. I know we have all got so sort of, at the moment, we are in such a pessimistic mood, but we have to get out of this, shake ourselves out of it. And as they say, after that, there was a great boom for many, many years. And, maybe this is that sort of event when after this, pandemic, we will all bounce back and there will be like all the happiness around and, prosperity ahead. So I think in India, God willing, we have luckily, we are now maybe at a takeoff point. We have a stable, strong government. I believe our government listens to us, though maybe things take time, but at least earlier there was no listening only. Now you write on emails, you get responses from the government, and there are some ministers who are working overtime, I must say, very hard. I can tell you, when I was the IMC president, I did like crazy number of seminars with them, and they were so forthcoming, all of them. I don't want to mention the ministries, but they were so well receptive. So if we are all partners, whether it's I must also compliment the employees. I mean, they're extremely nice. Whoever, I know all our organizations, whenever we told them like this is our problem, and everyone came clean and told them transparently, they respected, and they've also taken their share of burden, So they're not like left you in the lurch. If you're suppose a key man or even I would not say even a key man, even a smaller person in your organization, a smaller officer, if he left your organization and left you in the lurch, you'd be nowhere. You come back after the lockdown, you are trying to figure out things, you go crazy. So I think I mean, it's really creditable for all participants. It's been like a team effort in a way, whether it's the government, whether it's us manufacturers, whether it is the media, whether it is the employee. Everyone has shared the burden. There, of course, the healthcare workers and all is a different level only of commitment. So I think all in all, it's been, we have to again just pray that things bounce back, and go good for India.
Mahavir, if if you have to prepare for a black swan event like this, what is it that you're going to do? What have you learned?
For a similar kind of an event to happen again,
Yes,
I think
God
we are,
forbid.
huh?
God forbid.
God forbid. I think, I mean, there's no there's no easy way out. I mean, I think a product, I mean, unlike services, products have to be made, products have to be inspected, products have to be shipped, products have to be sold out of physical stores or online stores. The transport element in all of it and physical presence is very, very critical at times. And artisans, retail, everything is very, very important. So that's, but I think if it does happen, we are better prepared. We know what to do with our employees. We know how to segregate product and change our product line. On the technology bit, I'd like to add that we've already started to improvise products and we're using handheld machines for handmade stuff because we feel that too much of dependence on labor that's far-flung and too much of art, the look and feel is important and price has to be reduced. So improvisation is happening as we speak. Also, as I said, e-commerce, both B2B, B2C, through portals or directly has become an important tool. So we are ready to sell products, whatever so we won't be stuck with as much stock as we were because we did not have a B2B marketing in place. We did not have a portal to have in place. We did not have a module where people could look at all the stock. So, all that is now in place. So we're far better prepared. I think we are far better equipped. And I think if we've made our companies lean, both from debt point of view and operating cost point of view, and try to reduce cost. And if we can reduce the receivables in certain sectors, like in ours, we've been able to do that. But even apparel, we haven't been able to do that. I think we need to do that. The only thing, just to add to where governments have been very positive, I think our governments have a challenge in terms of feeding a country like India in terms of revenue vis-a-vis a country like a Bangladesh, Indonesia, a Thailand, Malaysia, because they don't have as many problems from revenue point of view, compliance point of view, controlling and monitoring point of view, and they can be far more focused on their industry than India can be, because Indian government has other problems and other situations also. But despite that, I think we're blessed to have the government that works. I totally agree, and they've been very, very helpful and positive. A lot needs to be done at the lower strata. I totally agree. Forget micro and self-employed people, hair salon, pan wala, sabzi wala. These people have struggled because they were surviving on the people that we were paying. So it's a challenge. The economy is going through a tough time. It will take time. It will take time to trickle down. But I personally feel that we're on the right track. We're more equipped, better equipped. And I think if all of us collectively work, both governments, large organizations, subsidiaries and micro organizations, I think we would be a better economy. Our rate of growth is down, but it's not as down as we thought it would be. I think we will bounce back in the year, no matter what the sector is.
Right. We're completely out of time. So my last question, starting with you, Mr. Saxena, and he'll say the same for all of you, is what are one or two things that you have changed in your business and you think that is going to stay for the future?
If I say in one line, smart working now. Visualize the things, don't take it, granted that the buyer will be there, supply line will be there, and people will be coming and working. Imagine that there is a lockdown coming or some restrictions coming. So how we will react with that? So just in time, cutting down our production period, cutting down the wastage, buying almost close to when you need the goods to start your production, and shipping on time. Don't take a chance for delay the goods, something like that. So basically, it's a smart and efficient working.
Right. Mr. Ved?
Yeah, so absolutely. I'll just add one more word to that. Maybe be innovative and be nimble. Nimble as far as your organization is concerned, also your finances. And innovative means keep adopting new technologies so you can do things smarter ways and faster ways and quicker ways, and also more efficiently.
Right. Mavi, the last word to you.
I think we have to be better equipped to cater to high-end, low-end market, export market, domestic market, luxury apartments to, BPF. So if you don't cater to multiple markets, you will be stranded sooner or later. And, there will be a turmoil in a country or in a sector and you would be left. So I think we have improvised. We are focusing on domestic because India is a huge market, no matter what the product is. So I think that we have to look at. We have to look at different sectors. We have to look at handmade, machine-made combination, innovation. I totally agree. So we have to be more equipped to cater to multiple markets so that politically, if there's war, if there's a disease, a pandemic, or if there is an economy that gets disrupted because of devaluation, like it did in many countries in South America, we are better equipped and we are far better positioned because we have alternate options. So always have a backup plan and alternate market to cater to, whether within India, whether neighboring or outside, wherever.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that was a wonderful discussion on what we have learned from the pandemic. And God forbid, like I said, if there is again a black swan event like this, and I think we'll all be better prepared to handle it. Thank you, Mr. Ved, Mr. Saxena, and Mavi. Thank you again.